Hey guys, welcome to the Monday Morning Wake Up Podcast, and I'm excited to have somebody in-house today. Not a Zoom, we got somebody live. We got my buddy Matt Smith. What's up, dude?
How are you doing? Happy to be here.
Dude, I'm excited to have you on.
I'm more excited that you started the Monday Morning Podcast all over again.
I'm excited as well.
When I heard it, I got down here immediately and wanted to be a part of this.
Yeah, that's true. I just opened up the office door and he was standing there. I didn't know what to do with myself. I was like, we got to go record something. So
where's the podcast?
But I'll tell you guys what, this is reality. Over the past decade, I think everybody can sit back and say, hey, who's made a big difference in really your career? Somebody that you could say, hey, I learned a lot from this person. I clicked well. In fact, I said this the other day, Matt. I was talking to an agent and said one of the most powerful things about Family First Life, it's kind of the thing that's unseen, but it might be more valuable than that which is seen, like the comp and the renewals and the leads. And it's having just such a wide net of people that are succeeding. When you bring somebody on board, you could say, hey, who do you connect well with? Who do you, when you listen to me, like, man, this really, I just get it. It helps me grow as a producer, as a business owner. And early on, man, that was you, Matt. I sat back and I was like, dude, the way you articulated the sales concepts and the way you communicated to the clients, your whole in-home, I was like, man, this is good. And I remember, driving back from Bakersfield 3 hours, dude, 2 days a week, every week for years, and just listening to podcast because it resonated well with me. And so much so, man, I thought I was 7 inches taller and I only had 2 daughters, not 4, and so it was good for my career and my height image, my insecurity of being 5'9". I grew when I listened to you. But what I really want to cover, dude, is going through, this podcast is really, I think, serving the agents that are just getting started. It's Monday morning and saying, hey, there's a lot of mental behind this business, a lot of mindset, belief systems, thought processes, and really kind of getting into that. What does that look like? And I think that in this business, compromise can kill you. It's something that can just really shows up when, in bigger times where it actually costs you more. And you've always talked about opportunity cost. Mm-hmm. And so what I want to first start with is compromise, and we'll move into opportunity cost and what does comfort cost you. And we're going to go through some specific things, guys, that really kind of, you're going to realize, hey, if you're feeling uncomfortable, that's okay. But what does it cost you to stay in that state of comfort in many areas of this business? So we're going to break it down. And I believe that when you get done with this, you're going to identify and be more self-aware of things for you specifically, where you say, hey, if I just get out of my comfort zone, I don't have to feel like doing this. But if you do it, the value and the benefit that'll come from it. And so, Matt, if you can talk about compromise in this business, because I think that's a silent killer. Can you talk about what that's looked like and how you've kind of eradicated that in your business?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems, Paul, is that coming from, like a W-2 job to a 1099 position like this, for most people, that's where they come from. They have the power of choice. And if you eliminate the ability to choose, you'll find success. And what I mean by that is one of the best things that I ever did early on, even with the previous IMO, with a 55% comp, I still had an office and 2 staff. And somehow I made the choice to have that. And what happened was it literally made my personal production go up because my overhead was so high. So the more that you can really eliminate the choice to work or not, because the way that our brains work, we always are trying to find the easy road, the easy way out of everything. And I think a lot of times for most people, they're willing to take a lot of risk. And, as long as you're plugging into our systems and our programs and our training platforms, it's pretty risk-free. When you consider everything. And then the other thing I would say is, early on, Paul, in my career, I always created a lead problem for myself. So many leads that, again, I didn't have a choice. So there really was never any compromise to doing it or not. So I think the biggest thing that most people need to look at is, what does your schedule look like? And, we talk about it all the time, but eliminating a lot of white space will give you no choices but to get to work. So small things and habits, rituals, and then also the big thing is everybody's got certain habits that they have, but really as far as your performance is what we're really talking about is your performance. It's really going to be the standards that you have. Are you the type of producer, if your minimum goal is 10 grand a week, are you the type of producer that if you hit 20 grand in that week, Paul, that the following week you had a short-term memory and you're just after it the same way? Or are you that most producers, just being very honest, if they have a good week or a solid week, that next week they're just not going to work as hard and they're going to give them ways out. And we're all human beings and all creatures of that. But the top producers, the top performers in our company or any business is going to, eliminate choices, go to work, and really have that short-term memory on success or failure. That's huge. I mean, the other thing I would say is, like, when we're talking about not compromising, living up to your standards, things like that, let's say, we're dialing on Mondays for Tuesday and Wednesday. You're doing 15 appointments. It doesn't go your way on those first 2 run days. And then you dial Thursday for Friday and Saturday. And let's say the week is not met where your goals are. Are you someone that brings your leads and, door knocks and does the extra on Saturday to reach your goal? Or are you someone that waves the white flag and says, maybe I'll get them next week? So it just really depends on your mindset and your competitiveness, right? How competitive are you? And the only person you're really competing against is yourself every day. I mean, we love to compare. We all are, we always compare, which is this comparison is a thief of joy. But at the end of the day, if you can just compare yourself to yourself and make sure that you get a little bit better every day, that's how that compounding effort takes place. And that's how success comes pretty quickly after that.
Man, I love that. And I think that, you hit something really big there, like that extra mile. I think going the extra mile and creating that habit where that reputation you have with yourself just says, hey, I'm gonna do it and then some kind of person. Like, I'm gonna attack it and then do a little bit more. I just remember, Matt, going to a lot of different meetings, and there'd be 2 agents sitting there. And one agent would always be the guy that's like, man, I'm just always falling a little short. And the other guy was like the one that always just had the good break. And I won't disclaim names, but it was like every week this other agent just, he had it going on and the other agent was just a little short. And we'd break down the numbers, and eventually we started looking at their numbers, and we realized that the agent that had the greatest week, for the most part, 80% of his week was actually headed in the wrong direction. He was having a worse week than the agent that ended up with the worst week. And the difference was he door knocked when the other agent didn't door knock. He had more no-shows and more no-sales, but he brought his leads. And when the other agent just kind of went and hung out at Chick-fil-A and ate a sandwich, the other agent was eating in his car and he was dialing, booking appointments. The other agent, left at 8 a.m. and got his first appointment by 9. The other agent left at 7 a.m., did door knocks between 7 and 8, and made that one big sale that led to an additional $3,000-$4,000. The other agent decided not to buy additional leads and just work through a bunch of old stuff, trying to squeeze and get a person that never answers to answer the phone mystically, which didn't happen. And the other agent went on the CRM and bought an additional 30 leads, called those, and those 2-3 appointments he booked from those 30 leads led to the additional $4,000. It was mind-blowing that the other agent literally had better show ratio, better close ratio, better booking ratio, but the difference was that little bit extra, where the other agent was more inclined to do to compromise. Man, I don't know if I really feel like going to the last appointment. They're probably not there anyways. And he'd have this narrative about different situations as if it wasn't going to work out. And that would basically guide his feet in taking that behavior, and didn't do it. Where the other agent was this hopeful, like, man, it's going to work out. I'll see the success. I'm going to go ahead and door knock at those couples. It'll probably work out. They'll probably be there. But the other guy was probably, it's not going to work out. And it was just that shift of mindset where one was engaging in compromise that led him to take, the short path and kind of the easy road, so to speak, and just sit back and not do. And the other one was going above and beyond, was doing what he needed to and then a little bit more. And I think that's such a big deal. Matt, talk about, like, when you look at your career, for one, dude, you were the top producer with FFL year after year in the beginning stages. And in the beginning stages, it didn't look like it looked now. No. It was like, travel, get some mortgage protection drops. It was just different, a lot more, I think, in, preparation you had to have to go out there and produce at a high level. Carriers, we had one carrier,
right?
Paper apps, and it was like that for quite a few years. I'm not trying to make it seem like me and Matt walked uphill both ways.
We did.
Barefooted. Yeah, he lost a toe due to frostbite, but he kept going, which that's another topic we'll get into. But and talk about that. What were some of the events in your career? I don't know, maybe that switching over and joining Family First Life where there was no real framework. It was just this good concept of giving back and doing the most we could for agents. Comp, all these things seemed good, but they were really kind of theoretical, so to speak, until it started to form. I mean, just go through a couple different scenarios where you're like, man, this was uncomfortable, but I did it anyways. And then what would it have cost you if you didn't get uncomfortable? What would the comfort cost you?
I think interesting enough, I'm grateful for our past. I mean, we worked at the same company, Paul, for example, and I believe that to be able to, we'll just call it barely make it, right, at a low comp environment with a tremendous amount of overhead and everything else, and then seeing what I had to give effort-wise in order to get what I wanted out of that, and then understanding with, just our culture here at Family First Life. Our culture has been good from day one. That's, thanks to Sean's leadership and people like yourself, Andrew, et cetera. You guys have been tremendous assets to Family First Life overall. But seeing that, it was easy to follow there. And in the first few years to wait 4 weeks for mail drops and, strategy wise, we didn't have much of a strategy. It was just being aggressive and making sure that you got enough leads in your hands to make things happen. And now it's so much easier for people to hire because we can get leads in hands right away. And early on, I think where I found a lot of success for me, Paul, because, I live right outside Portland, Oregon now. And but I was living in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho for just out of college for about 16 years. And I did the financial services portion for right around 6 years in Coeur d'Alene. Well, when I first got started, they didn't have any direct mail or anything else. So I did internet leads, live transfer internet leads. And that's where I kind of learned how to start to navigate and understand different lead opportunities and take advantage of those. But the one thing early on that I remember doing a lot of, Paul, was I would drive 6 hours to Portland to run business, or I'd drive 5 hours to run to Seattle, or I'd go into Montana and run business. I was all over the Northwest running business all the time. I know you were the same too, because you've told a lot of stories about that. But I didn't think anything of it. Like, it wasn't even a big deal because I knew the money was going to follow. And the beautiful thing, I think, for people that do travel trips is the fact that you're so focused, there's no distractions and no choices, right? No choices because you just go to work. So those are some things early on that maybe gave me some advantages of understanding work ethic and understanding being intentional with your time and getting the most out of things. Because you see agents now, Paul, that are, just coming into Central California or Northern California, for example, and doing travel trips because there's a lot of lead flow up there in this area, and then they'll grab 20 grand in 3 days and go back home. I mean, that's being smart and intentional and understanding what kind of impact you can make in a short period of time. Because like I said, we're talking about opportunity costs. One of my biggest regrets early on was not having a balanced approach to personal production and hiring. We're doing some hiring, not at the rate that I would want. But now with everything that we have here, you can really be a lot more intentional, get a lot more done because of the leads that are available. And then it gives you the idea to, really start to hire and have your own agency. Because what we don't talk about enough is, if you could be a career sales agent, Paul, you can, but let's be honest, those are exceptions to the rule. Most people after a decade of doing sales is burnt out. Sure. So if you don't, start to hire, build a team, have a team, first of all, it takes a lot of, that emotional roller coaster out of it. Where one of the things you said, I like what you said there is, the minute you take out your emotion to things, the better off you are. It's hard to do though, because we're super emotional people, just everybody in the South. But the top people understand how to manage the pitfalls and the success at the same time. So those are some areas I think early on that I was doing that didn't seem like a big deal though, because they were just the standards that I had set for myself and certain goals that I wanted to achieve. And I've always been competitive. So I've always been someone that was paying attention to leaderboards, watching you or, Sean or whoever, and wanting to strive to, beat everybody. The biggest thing with if you're trying to be a top performer and you're in a certain area, you don't want to be the top person in your office. You don't want to be the top person in the state. You want to be the top person in the country, right? So if you're going to compare yourself, at least compare yourself to, Steve in Florida or, Brad in Washington or something like that, these top performers where you can really start to understand what they do and how to get to where they've gone. So those are some of the extra things and things that I didn't compromise early on. And the benefit of having that low comp was you had to work, and that instilled, early on with Family First Life. And it's been great ever since.
Well, I think dude, there's so much that you just said. There's so many things I love. Like even the agents that I think when they come on board, we have so many agents joining Family First Life, man. It's like they're beating down the door. It seems like the ones that do really well are the ones that they have a good perspective on what they came from. They're not like, man, that happened to me. That was terrible. Like they're afflicted with some condition, some victimization mindset. They look back and say, man, like I'm appreciative for that because it gave me the right perspective on how good this is. And I don't want to let it slip through my fingers, right? It's kind of like the whole stat where they say like an immigrant is 7 times more likely to be a millionaire. Wow, they know the opportunity. They're like, man, I know where I came from. I'm not messing this up. This is good. I'm in a place where I have the opportunity, the privilege to go out there and create greatness. And I think it's the same thing. Agents that I see that do well, that come from other IMOs and companies, they don't act like they're afflicted. There's no victimization. They use that as a great perspective to keep the right appreciation and the right performance tied to the appreciation in doing this. And I think the agents that don't, they end up, somehow finding another thing here that doesn't make them successful. It's another excuse of why they can't. And I think that's a big deal. And I wonder, Matt, like a lot of what you're talking about is kind of stacking the deck. It's almost like creating, significant buy-in where it kind of keeps your feet in the right path. You don't go to the left or right. Your eyes don't shift to the left or the right. It almost kind of keeps you focused on the activities that really need to be done to see success. Because you're buying, like the travel trip, buying more leads, all these things. And I wonder, like, what I think, Matt, is sometimes maybe the great differentiator between the person that, doesn't hit their goals and really falls well below them, and then the agent that just crushes it. You're like, man, look at what that person's doing. I wonder if it's just that small, that crossroads where the agent's not having the week they want. They're kind of giving into these maybe dysfunctional self-sabotaging behaviors and habits, right? When they think too much, they want to know more about product. They look at their leads, and they start that's an angry signature, double looped. It's a double loop signature. I ain't calling out. And they're just opposed to attacking. I wonder if that agent, typically starts to slow down because they're starting to engage and really dwell on the doubt and let that build. And the other agent says, man, I'm going to go all in. Like this has to work. And they create that life or death kind of scenario, because I know for me, Matt, when we came on board, I think a lot of the choices I made, I don't know if I would have still made them if in my mind it didn't feel or seem like it was life or death. Like to me with my family and the girls, like it was like, this is life or death. So, going on a long travel trip, right? Taking all I had and dropping it in mail drops because that's what we had to do back in the day. All those different things. It didn't seem so big because it was comparing it to life or death.
Right.
So it was like, I'm going to go do that. It wasn't this as uncomfortable as it normally would have seemed, I think because of how I contrasted it and what I contrasted it to. Dude, can you talk about like, how do you create like life or death situations when it's not life or death? Because I think when it's life or death in your mind, I think it's a mindset thing. When it's life or death in your mind, I think that you're more inclined to really do what you need to do to see the success that you desire and you want to have. But when it's not life or death, I believe that it's easy to slip into complacency. You got this smug, just discontent. You're just like, you kind of go through the motions. how do you keep that life or death when it's not life or death, so you can continue to reach your potential and operate at capacity?
I think the biggest scenario for most people is, you are the 5 people that you hang around the most, right? As far as their incomes, as far as their lifestyle, as far as, their mindset. So in order to stretch your ability and reach your capacity, I think it's really important to take an evaluation of who you spend the most amount of time with, and are they, bringing you down, like the crabs in the bucket type scenario, or are they uplifting you and supporting you? Because there's a lot of things with things that are new with certain households. For example, you might have a spouse that is killing your business just because they're wondering what time you're going to get home, or frustrated when you don't get you get no sales all day, or no shows, or you shouldn't be doing that, or whatever. But the difference is they don't realize that, you could have one sale of $2,400 in a day, and that's as much as people make in a month sometimes. So the opportunity is huge. And I think a lot of things that you have to do is you have to focus on things you can control. The 4 things I've been talking about is we've talked about a lot on these podcasts, but your attitude and activity is 2 of them. And then your strategy and your execution is really where you separate yourself from everyone else. And if you have the right strategy as far as lead flow, as far as how you want to build the business, as far as, the mentors and the people that you're talking to, then it just comes down to executing. And if you can execute at a high level and learn how to really maximize your schedule, maximize your time, maximize your results, that's where you'll find a tremendous amount of success as well.
I love that. And I think that, listening to you talk, Matt, you kind of, you go back to where you started. I started the same place, 55% comp, you know what I mean? And think about what it would have cost us to stay where we're at. Now, for me, you had relationships at the prior company. Mm-hmm. I had family, relationships. So it was very uncomfortable. I was 19 when I started there. And so all my relationships, and really, I guess if I looked at, my life as an adult, it was spent there. All my time, all my energy, all my effort, all my relationships, it was tied within that. And so it was really uncomfortable. And, but I think like if I would have stayed in that comfort zone, and I was, I wasn't killing it. I was making, a couple $100,000, but being 21, 22, it was a lot more than I thought I would ever make back the way I grew up. Dad being a plumber, mom not working, In fact, I should take you by the house I grew up in, man. You get a kick out of it. Down off of Vine Street, I think we bought it for like $75,000, It's probably still worth $75,000, maybe 76.
It didn't go down.
Yeah, it didn't go down. But, I think about like, that what that would have cost, if I would have just stayed in my comfort zone. If you would have stayed in your comfort zone, now you're wearing an integrity hat. So you're an integrity, you're a managing partner. You grew your business to, such a high level where you became a partner with integrity. Talk about that. What does that mean?
The integrity partnership.
Yeah.
All that. You triggered a point too, Paul. You triggered a point that made me think of, I was coming out of the car business and did F&I for 8 years out of college, and my family owns the world's largest Dodge Chrysler dealership, and I was making like $350 a year in my 20s, right? And I was capped. I was just capped, and 3 years in a row made about that money. And then I told them I was going to leave, and they wanted to pay me like $100,000 more. And it wasn't about the money at that point. It was just more of chasing the potential of what we could do, which turned me on to being self-employed. And I was lucky enough to find this opportunity. Really, the opportunity found me, I should say, because I didn't answer an ad or anything like that. And the biggest thing with fast forward to FFL and the opportunity that Sean's given all of us is we've started to produce this factory where if you build an agency, let's say the average full-time producer is right around $8,300 or so a month. If you had 121 of those people doing about $1 million in a month, you're probably pretty close to coming to the table with integrity and being acquired and having the ability to even scale your business even more and be a part of a bigger team that is, the best of the best of the business with, best of practices, all their employee programs you're aware of. Those are things that anybody can have here at Family First Life. And I'm not aware, there might be a couple, there's like 80 integrity partners right now. There might be a couple companies that have one or two other agencies. There's no company that has 11. So we've got 11, different examples that people can follow to really change their life, and more to come, which is exciting because we're starting to produce a factory where you can just plug into systems and that's the scenario, if you're working at a captive agency, like a lot of these producers are, you don't know what you don't know. They're never going to have the ability to get acquired. A lot of these captive agencies, they're never going to have the ability to build a team. You get your first recruits, then you got to hand them off and you're never able to really get to where you're going. So there's so many different models that we're aware of. There's, different places that are trying to give, equity of the company, for example. But they're really only giving them maybe 20% of the entire company's equity. And then you get a portion of that small 20%, which somehow people think it's valuable. I would rather have 100% of everything that I do. And it's no different than our comp program. Our comp program is higher than everybody else's. So you're able to own, operate, get acquired, do whatever you want to do here, which is a complete game changer. And, there's a lot of people that are watching at this point, and my advice would be just don't be the last one to leave.
I agree. I agree, man. And, and the cool thing about it is this. I was thinking about this as you were talking about kind of your prior occupation before you got your insurance license. I think it'd be easy for people to think, maybe I wonder if you have somebody that you've kind of discounted and disqualified because they're too qualified to have a conversation about possibly being an agent with Family First Life. You think, man, that person is doing so well. You probably had a nice car, probably lived in a nice house, great income, family-owned business. So like job security is pretty good. It's not like, this, sure. It's through the family. And most people have thought like, you wouldn't have been interested. And I think they could have discounted you. Mm-hmm. And think about what it would have done for them to not invite you to that business, the opportunity. And then how your life's so much different because of that, for you and the kids and, your girls and, it's a big deal. And then on my end, I was pumping septic tanks. So you might think, man, he's underqualified. Like I'm going to discount him because he's not qualified. You just don't know.
You never know.
You just never know, man. And, the one thing I think of when I hear you talk about going back to like starting in the business and then now being an integrity partner, that's a path that you've crossed. That's a big, that on the sliding scale, it's from here to here. How do you, I think people have a tendency to kind of over exaggerate yesterday, right? Like the old days were so good. I used to kill it. And they go back to that. And I think they overestimate tomorrow, like what they can get done tomorrow and the next day. And I think they underestimate what they can do in a day. And what I know to be true is that the success, what it looks like, the beauty behind it, like, man, it's so great. Look at the partnership. Look at the accolades, what they've accomplished. I think that looks appealing, but the process to get there, it's not sexy. It's just every day being excellent in that day. Can you talk about that, like the compound of day after day? And really for you, what do you believe is the most important to go out there and focus on day in and day out to eventually get to a position? And maybe there's quite a few things tied to that get you to a place where you go from just starting day one and now an integrity partner.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is, confused, buyers don't buy and confused agents never do well. And it just, like we've talked about, it starts with your daily discipline. But the things I've talked about in the past, I think a lot of people will have 15 different things that they want to get done, today. And the problem is you might be able to do that once, but you can never do it twice in a week, 3 times in a week, etc. So I'm a big fan of having, 5 daily tasks, and they can even be a couple personal ones that aren't even business related. And, make sure that if setting 15 appointments is on a Monday as part of the task, then you've got to do whatever it takes to set those 15 appointments, whether the dial day is the full day or whatever. Maybe it's, at least talking to 2 people a day about the opportunity. That could be another daily task. Maybe, training other agents, some mindset stuff, plugging into these podcasts that can be very valuable as well. And then what happens is, if you do these 5 tasks every day, what will happen is your life will completely change after 100 days if you just do 5 tasks a day. You don't need to do 6. You don't need to do 15. If you just set those small goals and hit them, you'll have that compounding effort, and the rest will take care of itself.
Now, I think for one, that's a big thing what you just said. And so I hope everybody listening is thinking about, hey, how do I put this into practice today? Because that's how you make tomorrow a better day, is to have an excellent day today, and then you just go out there and continue to move forward. Everybody listening to this, for the most part, is in the sales industry with Family First Life or looking at Family First Life. What are the 5 things that you believe are just crucial to lead to the success that people want to desire to have? What are those 5 things you believe?
I think the biggest thing, the biggest epidemic in our industry, Paul, is the phones. So you have to get great at the phone, because you do not have a money problem, you have a people problem. So if you see enough people, the money will always follow. But, I've always said that 80% of the business is the phones, 15% is the in-home, and 5% is product knowledge. When you're new, you spend 80% of your time on 5% of the business. And, you have to get great on the phone. And for all the lead vendors that we have, the great thing about it is we've vetted them all out for the producers. You name the lead type, if it's in the CRM or if it's on our platform, it means there's success all across the board. And that's probably number 2, right? Is getting leads in your hands to obviously. You need to be aggressive there. I think you also have to have those daily disciplines of being intentional, eliminating a lot of white space, just understanding there's no money in your office or in your house. You have to go out and get it. And if people aren't picking up the phone, you got to door knock, or you got to do all the extra things. So, your strategy is important in that regard. And then also, 85% of Hall of Fame producers, Paul, for example, wrote annuities, but only 7% in the company write advanced market sales. So there's something these top performers know that the people that aren't doing as well don't know. And second sales opportunities are the easiest sale to get. But a lot of times people are walking over dollars to pick up pennies in this industry. And you've got a captive person. So learning how to really maximize, your results in each home is going to help you have a tremendous amount of success. And then as you start to get as your skill set gets better, Paul, the biggest thing I tell people is, because everything comes with a cost, right? We're talking about opportunity cost. That 5th layer is, how are we going to attack the hiring portion of your agency? What are you doing that's setting yourself apart from the competition to get attention? Whether you're doing it through social media. I mean, one of the things that I talk about a lot is your warm market is watching you, whether you know it or not. And if you're very inconsistent with your messages, then you probably are going to get inconsistent results through your warm market hiring. So imagine Paul, telling a story, say, I sat with, John and Mary, was in their house for 42 minutes, and you're on, Facebook Live or whatever. And I was able to alleviate the financial burden on their family, got $15,000 plans in place to cover all their burial costs and final expenses. I got paid $842. I was there for 42 minutes. If you want to know more about what I do, contact me at this number. Start to storytell. That's how you get better at sales, right? Storytell. Use your social media platforms to storytell. And more importantly, not only talk about yourself, talk about the other people that are winning and tell stories about them then you start to gravitate people more and more. And there are people that do a very good job at Family First Life with this, and you can tell because they're growing tremendously. But you know, the interesting thing, I was doing some training out at Andrew's office this week, and I asked the producers in the room, I said, you know, who wants to build an agency here? And everybody raised their hand. And I said, okay, is there anything that would get in your way at all to building your agency? And I went around and asked all the people, nothing. Everybody said, no, there'd be nothing that would get in the way of it, right? The interesting thing is most people really do care what people think. And the interesting thing about caring what people think is it literally is only 3 or 4 people that they are worried about their opinions. So the more that we can eliminate and not worry about, you know, judgment that we receive based off this industry, I think that's that other element where you can really start to gain progress. Because look at our success, for example, warm market, tremendous success for you, no different for me.
Yep.
Anybody here at Family First Life would have that same scenario. So those are some of the areas that I would tell you to, you know, focus on early and have impact early, and just try to put yourself out there and, you know, not worry about what other people think.
I love that. You know, and I think that one of the things that you look at that concept, I think everybody says, no, I don't care what people think. And then you start to uncover things and peel it back, and you're like, no, you really do, you know, and if you don't know you do, then you're never going to fix it. And so you just go through life almost subconsciously taking steps that are really ordained by somebody that is not you, not somebody you really care about, just somebody that you feel that you don't want to be judged by, you know, and you don't even realize it. And so I think that, for one, understanding that most people do feel that way, and it could be upbringing, different things that took place where you kind of do what you do based off of what other people in your mind are going to make them happy or approve you. And at the end of the day, it's one of those things that, I mean, I just think the enemy uses it to really mess people up, to keep them lidded or put a lid over what they can accomplish. And I think, you know, an affirmation that you can add to what you do in the morning is saying, like, they don't matter. Not like people don't matter. People matter immensely. I mean, if you're great in this business, you value people. You value people in the home. That's why you're so good at helping clients, because they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, that whole concept. Same thing with agents. You know, you're going to build a great agency when the agents know that you're doing everything for them for their best interest, whether that's challenging them, empowering them, equipping them, time, energy, effort. It's you're serving them. You value them. But that affirmation of they don't matter, what it's doing is starting to tell yourself, like, man, people, their opinions don't matter. They don't matter. And I think if you do that over and over and over again, that might be what's necessary to kind of get you free from, you know, a lot of these things that you procrastinated or not done or stayed in your comfort zone, because you're sitting back thinking, like, what if they say this, or what if they view it? And the dangerous part is if you're not even aware that that's why you're doing it. Because I think most people are not even aware that that's what's taking place. That's what's causing them to stay in their comfort zone, is caring about what other people think. And, you know, recapping, Matt, kind of what's been, you know, covered today, because there's so much value and content covered. You know, to kill compromise, go the extra mile. You know, go the extra mile. When you feel that little feeling in your stomach that says, man, I don't know if I really want to go to the last appointment. I don't want to do that last door knock. I don't want to buy those leads. I don't want to hire my staff. I don't want to get to the office. Just do it. And then when you do it and do a little bit more. Do everything you've got and a little bit more. And there's so much success found in going the extra mile. And then also when you look at, you know, these compromising things, like, you know, some of the things you spoke about, the comfort, what does it cost you? Getting a staff member. Like, you had one day one. My first staff member, you know, she worked like 9 hours a week. I don't even know why it was 9 hours. It was just 9 hours. That's what in my mind, I thought 9 hours was good. And her name, it was my Aunt Michelle, and statute of limitations right now, so I could tell you that I was illegally paying her underneath the table. You know, it's been over 10 years. But, I mean, it didn't look pretty. It didn't look good. You go up to my office now, you're like, man, the staff looks great. They're well communicated. It's dialed in, the culture skill. It didn't look like that day one. And it would have never looked like that if it didn't look bad when I first did it. If I didn't get out of my comfort zone and just, you know, pay the price and do it. You know, she would call me up from the bank like, hey, fool. That's what she'd tell me, because I was her nephew and I was 19. So she just thought I was a fool. And I probably was. She'd be like, you spelt my name as Michael and the bank can't cash my check. Like I drive all the way back there. You're going to pay me for my gas. It was just, it didn't look good. It was a disaster, and even the first office space, man, I tried to stay in my comfort zone as long as I could. And it cost me so much money, dude. Like I remember I had 3 staff in my house over on High Park. I think you've been in that house, and my wife would come downstairs and she'd just be like, really? I feel like I'm a squatter. What do you mean you're a squatter? She's like, this isn't a house. I'm squatting at an office. Like, are they going to arrest me when they find out that I'm squatting at an office? Because every bedroom had a staff member. They were in the living room, and I had agents over. And so for what? How much did that cost me? Not being focused and having an environment that was set for success cost me immensely. So I wonder if that's you. I wonder if you've stayed in your comfort zone too long about getting an office space. And if you get an office space, that's going to make your day better, right? A travel trip, I remember making my first travel trip to Washington. That was my first travel trip that I encountered me getting on a plane to get there. It wasn't like an 8-hour drive. It was a flight. And I remember flying in there, man, being young, so young that they wouldn't rent a car to me. And I didn't know until I got there, And that's how I realized I was pretty good at sales, because I sold the guy on doing it, and giving me a car. And I remember in that rental car running appointments, dude, 9, 10 o'clock at night. My last one was at 9:30 at night. And I can't remember, it was Renton, yeah. Driving all the way back, and dude, being so just beat and tired from 3 days in the field, and starting at like 7 a.m. because I was in there. I traveled there, but I was running like 4 counties out there, I can't remember what the names of the counties were. One of them I think was in Seattle.
King
County, yeah. And hitting I hit a center divider because I fell asleep. And I could only afford like the $33 a day car, like the Hyundai Elantra. The hubcap goes flying. In my mind, I don't know any, but I'm thinking like, dude, they're gonna charge me $10,000 for that dang hubcap. So I pull over, dude, and I get out, and it's on the on-ramp, and there's cars like whizzing by me, almost killing me. I'm dodging. I grab the hubcap. I drive, put it in the car. The next day, I got to drop it off, and I'm like, man, what am I gonna do here? So I went to Walmart, got some duct tape. You double in the duct tape, and then you stick it back on and drove it up. And I was like, it's good, man. And I got out of there. But just the cost of comfort. But if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be in this business, because it was necessary. I had to do that when it came to leads. There was no leads where I was at. And it was either I continued to write 4,000 to 5,000 at a low comp, that was or I get out of my comfort zone and do that. And I think that that's such a big deal. Anything you want to wrap up with when it comes to opportunity cost and the cost of comfort, because I think it's a big deal.
I think one of the things that I would say that we don't talk about is your energy level early on. And I think about our choices, anything that we do, good or bad, are the choices that we've made. A good choice could be Family First Life, coming here and getting high comp and the ability to be a part of that. Good choices could be your partner or spouse. Good choices come in a lot of different forms, right? But you just got to realize that, if you wanted to get better as a producer, for example, the best way is to build in some tricks. What do I mean by tricks? If you build in some overhead, it will make, like, hey, I want to become a better producer, hire staff. Because then you're accountable to their family and their children or their lifestyle, and it's not just about you. So the more that you can, not make it all about you and yours and about all the other people, and then start to learn how you can help other people get what they want, and obviously it in turns and gets what you want. I think those are the simple aspects that you should focus on and really take advantage of.
I love that. So today, guys, sit back and think, hey, how can you create more buy-in? How can you stack the deck, create more buy-in, create more of a life or death situation, so to speak, to go out there and take the steps you need to take to be successful? This is such a simple business that anybody can do it. I was reading the top 20K producers, and it was like 150 people just in our group last month. I mean, it just shows you anybody can do this. And the separator between the one that's killing it and the one that's barely getting by, it's so small. It's these little things. It's these little uncomfortable steps to take that when you look up over a period of time, you're so much further because you took them. So, Matt, I appreciate you joining today, dude. Thank you so much, man. And guys, let's go out there, crush it. Be strong, stay steadfast, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.